Before we get started, I'll be appearing on my first live stream as a guest on the Fat DeLorean's YouTube channel. That is tomorrow night, technically Thursday, April 27th at 12 a.m. That's right, folks, midnight Eastern Standard Time, when I usually think of as Wednesday night, because oftentimes I'm still up. So hey, check it out, won't you? Now, let's cue that intro. Well, hello there everybody, I'm Photo Dave, this is Toypixx, and in this video, which was suggested by someone on Twitter, I'll be going over the differences between Mafex and Marvel Legends. And no, this isn't a slam campaign. What the question was that ended up leading into this on Twitter was, are Mafex figures really worth 4 or 5 times as much as Marvel Legends? And for me, I told him, yes, because I'm really into photos, and having extra hands and extra heads and the articulation that the Mafex figures offer really helps out with all kinds of expression and everything else when it comes to photography. But I also said if you're someone who collects mostly for display purposes, chances are Marvel Legends are going to get it done. So again, this isn't a slam video by any means. I'm just going to sit there and compare and contrast these two. And before we really get into it, there are some handicaps both of these actually have. One, the Mafex Wolverine actually comes with fewer parts than a lot of Mafex figures do. And two, the Marvel Legends Wolverine here, the one that I've got, doesn't have the butterfly joints. So he's just got kind of the bicep hinge, the shoulder hinge, and all that good stuff going on. So they are limited. He has fewer accessories than the standard Mafex. He has more accessories than a standard Marvel Legends, and I gave him some Can of Beams claws, so I'll be sure to put a link for those in the video description, which, by the way, leads me to telling you that I'll have a lot of product links in the video description below, which are going to be affiliate links. That means if you click on any of those and you buy anything on the website that you go to, even if, say, the link says Mafex Wolverine or Marvel Legends Wolverine, if you buy anything on that site, I get a cut, and I certainly appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's get into some comparing and contrasting, and maybe a little bit of extra credit as well. And here we have a Mafex Wolverine and a Marvel Legends Wolverine. You know, the two you saw at the intro. Anyway, for the Mafex Wolverine, you can see he comes with 2 alternate heads, he comes with a cowl, and 2 sets of alternate hands. For the Marvel Legends Wolverine, we have an alternate head, we have 1 set of alternate hands, and we have a sword. Yes, friends, sword. It does have a W there, although I'm sure that's not the proper pronunciation. Anywho, the Mafex Wolverine also comes with a stand, but I'm gonna go with one of those crazy opinions here. To me, a stand is more of a cost-cutting measure for a manufacturer and less of a value add for the consumer. But I know that flies in the face of how a lot of people feel, especially the Action Force crowd. I know a lot of people there really dig their stands. For me, I balance my figures and I use them a lot, so a stand doesn't matter so much. But anyway, there's kind of the spread. Now, let's check out the articulation on these two. Alright, obviously we're pretty much the same when it comes to neck movement. At least going forward. Going back, let's try that. We got Mafex Wolverine looking up that far. Now we've got this one. Oh, come on, buddy. I know you can do better than that. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. There was a slight pop when I was trying to push it a bit there. Let's see. Oh, this is taking too long now, and there's nothing going on. Okay, so I guess that's what we've got there. And I know for a lot of people that's not really a big deal, but for me, getting just that little bit of extra range leads to a lot more opposing opportunities, ability, all that. Plus, this Wolverine having this bottom hinge here at the neck, he can really turn his neck quite a bit that way. This Wolverine, on the other hand, that's everything I can pull off trying to push that one to the side. So you've got that as far as the necks are concerned. Now, that was far too long than it should have been, so let's just fast forward through the rest of this whole thing, shall we? Okay, what I did there was just kind of fast forward through the highlights. I didn't show shoulders because, again, it would have been unfair to compare this one's shoulders to that one's shoulders because most Wolverines do have the butterfly joint. So I felt that was kind of just not right to do. But one thing I always bring up when it comes to Marvel Legends versus Mafex is the ball-jointed waist. And I swear, if Marvel Legends had that ball-jointed waist, I would probably have a lot more in my collection. It just allows for so much more natural movement and allows for you to not break up the design or the sculpt at all. You can twist this however you want, then twist this to match. It's good times. It's one of the problems I have with their Spider-Man figures, is that even though it's got a great crunch and it's got great range, when you move this part of the figure, it twists, but totally breaks up the design of the webbing. So that's why I'm constantly saying, ball-jointed waist, guys, ball-jointed waist, because truly, if they did that, I would have a lot more Legends. And I heard Dan Yoon address that. I believe it was on an Unparalleled Universe livestream, where he said the problem is that would cost more money, but on the other hand, I have to think it drives him nuts and the rest of the Marvel Legends team because Hasbro is using that articulation scheme once in a while for other lines. If we get our boys here out of the way, you can see here that Serpentor has that articulation scheme. Now, it could be implemented a little better. It doesn't have quite the range that the Mafex one does, but I think with a little more practice, they'd be able to pull it off, and that's not bad range. So it's gotta drive the Legends guys crazy, because every time somebody asks that question, it tends to be about, you know, G.I. Joe can do this, why can't you guys do it? And so, yeah, for me, if all of Hasbro's lines did this, I would be a much bigger fan than I am right now. Now that we've got all that out of the way, let's cover a couple other things when it comes to Mafex versus just Hasbro in general. Now, I'm using these two because I don't have a Marvel Legends female figure. I'm really stoked, though, truly, about the super articulated Black Widow that's coming out. I can't wait to get my hands on her. But here's another figure that they do that ball-jointed waist on, with G.I. Joe Classified Zarana. And it's another figure that probably needs a little help in the engineering of the joint, but the joint's there, it's doing it right. And so you've got a Mafex female figure here, who gets a lot more out of it. Ooh, look at that, I actually got her to stand. So you've got those two going on. But it's still, that joint is there, and it makes it a lot easier to pose Zarana than, say, even that Wolverine I showed, just because everything kind of lines up when you post it. But something I want to show here, again, this wasn't to dog Marvel Legends or anything, so something I want to show here is the elbow range. When it comes to the female figures, here is Mafex, and here is Zarana. So Hasbro is actually beating Mafex when it comes to the elbow range with the female figures. So if they could do this kind of articulation, as well as the elbow range here, then at least as far as articulation's concerned, they might have at least even, possibly, maybe a little better than what Mafex is doing, which I think is pretty insane considering we're looking at a $25 figure versus probably about a $60 figure. And yes, I know that we all have to factor in shipping, but if we're honest about how much that is in Japan, about how much that is in the US, we're basically looking at 25 versus 60. So that's a pretty good sized jump when you consider that the articulation is comparable, although again, Harley comes with a whole lot more stuff. And now, just one more quick thing when it comes to Mafex versus Hasbro stuff in general. Now, something else I oftentimes hear about Mafex figures is that they're smaller than your standard domestic releases, and I'm not seeing it so much. You've got Superman and Destro, who are both listed at 6'3", and you've got Stalker, who's listed at 5'10". If anything, Stalker's a little tall, and Superman's a little tall. But I can see where people might think they're a little smaller just based on the way proportions are done here. Supes has obviously exaggerated proportions based on Jim Lee's art, whereas Stalker and Destro have more, I would say, normal proportions based on your average person, although slightly more muscular than your average person, of course. So you've got that going, but I do think that Mafex is a lot closer to domestic height than what a lot of people give it credit for, or give it crap for as far as being too short. But that's pretty much all I wanted to do, was just throw Superman in there and say, guys, I promise, Mafex really isn't all that much smaller than the regular domestic stuff. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that when it comes to the compare and contrasts between Mafex and Marvel Legends. Now, do me a favor and comment below and let me know, do you prefer Legends over Mafex? Do you prefer photography over display? Do you take your figures down and actually mess with them a lot? Or do you set them up in a pose and just leave them there to look awesome on your shelves? I want to know all the things. Now, as always, thank you very much for taking your time to watch me babble on the YouTubes. It's very much appreciated, and I know how valuable everybody's time is. So, truly, that's huge for me. And that's what I got for this one. So until next time, have fun and happy snapping. See ya.